This lecture will introduce disaster recovery concepts. We will also talk about how to develop a disaster recovery strategy. There are two types of disasters, natural and man-made. We'll take a closer look at them next. Among the natural disasters, companies are well prepared to prevent some of them. For example, companies have all implemented uninterrupted power supplies to prevent power outage. Companies have all built in hardware redundancy to prevent system failures. Other disasters such as earthquake and tornado are almost impossible to prevent. We still want to be prepared to deal with them should they happen. Among man-made disasters, the external security threats have caught a lot of attention. Ironically, there have been more disasters related to internal reasons, such as poor IT policies and procedures, insufficient personnel training. One thing I want to point out in particular is the personnel turnover. Some small companies and mid-sized companies, they have a business critical application maintained by one or two persons. When the person is gone, they are in danger of completely losing the support for the business critical application. We want to implement a cross-training system and a backup system to prevent this type of human disaster. This global survey covered natural disasters. Based on the findings, the two most common natural disasters are earthquakes and floods. They accounted for more than half of the overall natural disasters. This survey covered both man-made and natural disasters. It's very informative and amazing to see that the high-profile external security threats represented only 12% of the overall disasters. There were many more other disasters related to internal reasons, such as poor policies and insufficient training. There is certainly room to make internal improvements. When we develop a recovery strategy, we want to use a systematic and quantitative approach. We want to determine maximum tolerable downtime, MTD, and maximum allowable outage, MAO. We want to translate MTD into lost business revenues. We want to make decisions based on numbers. We want to make sure that the business expectation is met. When we develop a recovery strategy, we need to select a recovery time. There are three types of recovery time: hot, warm, and cold. With the hot recovery time, if there is a system problem, the production system can automatically fail over to a backup system. The users might not even notice the downtime. The hot recovery time is usually provided by high availability solutions. With the warm recovery time, the outage could be a few minutes or even longer. With the cold recovery time, the system could be done for hours, sometimes days. The warm and the cold recovery time are provided by disaster recovery solutions. We also want to ensure that our recovery strategy meets the legal and the regulatory requirements. There are specific requirements for some industry sectors, such as healthcare, government, and utilities. You can find more about the requirements at the website listed here. Another consideration when we develop a recovery strategy is how much data the business can afford to lose. If the business requirements indicate no data can ever be lost, then we need to implement high availability solutions. Otherwise, we need to implement a corresponding backup strategy. We want to make sure that we don't only back up data, we back up applications as well. Should there be a disaster, even the data is restored, but if we don't have applications to use to manipulate the data is still not usable. As always, security is a top priority. If we use physical media to send backup data to off-site storage, we want to use a sturdy, sealable container. We want to use a dependable carrier. If we use network to transfer backup data, we want to use one of the encryption techniques to secure the data. So, how do we choose a recovery strategy? Generally speaking, we want to use a systematic, quantitative approach. We want to translate the system downtime into lost avenues. We want to do careful cost-benefit analysis. We want to ensure that the business expectation is met. Keep in mind, developing a recovery strategy is a teamwork. We want to get both business and IT people involved. We want to ask the upper management to participate. We will need to get support and approval from the upper management. It's critical that we have a recovery plan in writing. In the recovery plan, we should have sufficient details. The details should not assume previous environment knowledge. It's very likely we will bring in outside people to help with recovery. We want to socialize the recovery plan. We want to make a change to the recovery plan whenever there is a system change. We want to have training sessions to execute the recovery plan. Ideally, we can put the recovery plan in a change control system, so we know that we always work with the current version of the recovery plan. This concludes the lecture on disaster recovery concepts.